Affordable housing isn't just about buildings. It's about people, pathways, and the professionals who choose to stay in a field that's constantly evolving. Across the country, more than 11 million households are considered cost burden, spending over 50% of their income on housing. At the same time, the affordable housing industry faces increasing complexity, from compliance requirements and regulatory shifts to the day-to-day realities of serving diverse resident populations. And behind all of it are the individuals doing the work, often behind the scenes, keeping communities stable, compliant, and moving forward. That's what today's conversation is about. Welcome back to the SAHMA Exchange, where policy, people, and property management meet. Today, we're sitting down with Michelle Cutillo, Vice President of Compliance at WRH Realty Services. Michelle shares how she found her way into affordable housing, like many in this industry, not through a straight path, but through opportunity, curiosity, and a willingness to learn. We also talk about what's kept her here, what motivates her work today, and why compliance, often seen as purely technical, is really about protecting people and preserving access to housing. Because in an industry where the stakes are this high, the people behind the process matter just as much as the policy themselves. So with that in mind, because so many careers in affordable housing don't follow a straight line, I'd love to start with Michelle's story. Let's take a listen about how she got her start in the industry.
So I kind of fell into the industry. It's probably, a million years ago now. Came out of retail, saw a position for a lease-up property, ended up being a tax credit lease-up property, went into it thinking that this is just kind of another sales position, and definitely ended up finding my career, finding my home in the industry, realizing that this is where I would like to, stay for the rest of my career. And I worked my way up from a leasing person, assistant manager. I've done all aspects on the property, and then worked my way into a compliance field. Started just as a compliance specialist, overseeing our affordable portfolio, and then worked my way up from there. As an acting regional director, worked in operations for a little while, became part of our train wreck team to help on those properties that were a little more distressed. And then about 11 years ago, got promoted to the director of compliance, and then in the last couple, vice president. So I love all aspects of affordable housing and what it does for the communities and the benefits of it.
I love that idea that she found a forever career in affordable housing, because that isn't something you hear every day, especially in property management. This is an industry where turnover is actually pretty high. Depending on the data you look at, property management teams can see annual turnover rates around 30 to 35%, which is significantly higher than the national average across other industries. And the average tenure for a property manager, that's often less than 2 years. So when someone not only finds their way into this work, but chooses to stay and build a career in it, it really says something. So I wanted to talk to Michelle about why she loves this industry and why she's stayed around and how she's worked her way up the ladder.
So I think for me, working in affordable housing, watching families that possibly struggled lower than median income, whether that's single family households, families, or even seniors, either finding their forever home or being able to help them buy a home later on. There's a sense of inspiration and a sense of joy that brings to me. Now, when it comes to the compliance side of it, what do I, find rewarding in compliance is, of course, helping the owners and developers by keeping their current properties in compliance, helps them get new developments, which brings more affordable housing to much needed areas. So I think it's extremely rewarding.
That's such an important perspective, because even though compliance can feel removed from the day-to-day resident experience, it really isn't. When you're helping properties stay compliant, stay funded, and stay operational, you're ultimately helping preserve and create housing. And right now, that couldn't be more critical. In the U.S., we're facing a shortage of more than 7 million affordable and available rental units for extremely low-income households. It's a massive gap, and it means that every property that stays in compliance, every unit that stays online, and every deal that moves forward really does matter. So I decided that I wanted Michelle to bring it down to a more personal level. What is one moment that has stuck with her? One story that's made a difference in someone's life? Something that really affected her both professionally and personally.
So as I kind of said, I fell into affordable housing from retail, thinking it was just another sales position, thinking I was there just to lease an apartment. And on day one, I knew I found my forever career because we moved in, a single mother coming right out of a domestic violence shelter. We were able to offer her and her family, the safe, sanitary, decent housing that we watched her grow. She lived there for many, many years. Her children grew up with us. And I just wanted to find a way to take that feeling of inspiration and that feeling of joy that I felt helping, this woman better herself. She ended up moving out and purchasing her own home, and just doing better for her family. And had that happening day one has just been in my head and in my heart the whole time that I'll never leave the industry.
That's an incredible story, and it really captures what's possible in this industry. It's not just about housing in the moment. It's about creating a path forward, stability that can actually change the trajectory of someone's life. And stories like that don't happen in a vacuum. They happen because there are systems, support networks, and professionals who are learning from each other and pushing the industry forward. That's why I love what Michelle talks about next. She talks about the importance of organizations like SAHMA. Let's dive into what she has to say.
Sure. So I was lucky enough that my company was already a member of SAHMA when I came on board. So I remember going to my very first SAHMA meeting over 10 years ago now and just feeling a sense of community, feeling that I was with like-minded individuals, that I could network with them, I could learn with them. And then I became a volunteer and feeling like I was, quote unquote, like in the room where it happened. You can be there to see how decisions get made and advocate for affordable housing and what's needed in the industry. So I will always be involved in SAHMA in some way because I feel like it really it benefits everybody, because when we're training the on-site teams, when we're training that executive level, it's all going to filter down to creating a better experience for our residents.
The room where it happened, the room where it happened. If you know, you know. But I do love that phrase because once you've had that kind of exposure, it's hard not to want to keep showing up and getting better at what you do. And that piece, continuing to learn and grow, is so critical in this industry, especially when you think about how much regulations, funding requirements, and compliance standards are constantly evolving. In fact, studies show that about 94% of employees say they would stay at a company longer if it invested in their learning and development. And organizations with strong training programs see significantly higher engagement and performance. But let's be honest, professional development doesn't always have the best reputation. It can feel a little dry. So Michelle talks about one of the best kept secrets. Well, maybe not secrets, it's pretty much out in the open, about what SAHMA does with professional development.
Sure. So really every conference that I've gone to with SAHMA, whether that's the leadership conference or the state conferences, they have created such a sense of community that it makes it fun. Very rarely are you going to hear fun and affordable housing and training in the same kind of sense. It's not the most exciting thing. It's not always the most fun. But SAHMA finds a way between, their themes, their volunteering, their involvement, and then finding trainers that keep everybody engaged on all different levels. So every single conference that I've gone to has created a sense of fun networking, but also at the same time, like the amount that I learn from each conference has been great.
I love that about SAHMA because when professional development is actually engaging, it doesn't just make people better at their jobs, it changes how they show up in the industry and how they advocate for the people they serve. And that's something we've talked about a lot on this podcast, this idea of the stigma around affordable housing. It comes up again and again and again, no matter who we're talking to or what role they're in. But in a way, that's also something that unites this industry Because regardless of what management company you work for, what state you're in, or what your day-to-day role looks like, we're all working toward the same thing. We're all in a position to help break that stigma and advocate for our residents. And the reality is, the data just doesn't support the stereotypes. Most people living in affordable housing are not who the stigma suggests. They're working families, seniors on fixed incomes, and individuals with disabilities. According to the National Low Income Housing Coalition, the majority of extremely low-income renters fall into one of those categories. We also know the need is massive. We talked about how the U.S. is still short more than 7 million affordable and available rental units for extremely low-income households. And when people do have access to stable, affordable housing, the impact is significant. Better health outcomes, stronger educational performance for children, and greater long-term economic mobility. So when we talk about organizations like SAHMA and the way they bring people together, support professionals, and make learning engaging, it's bigger than career development. It's about equipping people to better serve residents who are actively working to build better lives. So for this last question, Michelle has been in the industry for so long and worked in so many different roles. I wondered what she thought about that stigma.
So I think sometimes there's a stigma on the residents in affordable housing. And I think what I really want people to know about the residents on our affordable housing properties, that they are there to better themselves, better their families, better their situation, and really become, a more productive member of society and be able to do better for themselves and their family.
Big thank you to Michelle Cutillo for joining us today on the SAHMA Exchange. Thank you so much for sharing your story, your perspective, and the work you're doing in this industry. I think what stands out from this conversation is something we hear again and again on this podcast, that affordable housing is rarely just a job. It becomes a career, a calling, and for many, a long-term commitment to people and communities. Because behind every compliance review, every certification, every policy update, there are real lives being impacted, families finding stability, individuals getting a second chance, residents building a path forward. And while the challenges in this industry are real, from regulatory complexity to the ongoing shortage of affordable housing, so is the impact of the people doing this work every day. That includes the professionals supported by organizations like SAHMA, who are learning, connecting, and advocating, not just for their own growth, but for the residents and communities they serve. So to everyone listening, whether you're on site, in compliance, in leadership, or just getting started, your work matters. And conversations like this are a reminder of why. Thanks for joining us on the SAHMA Exchange, a podcast where policy, people, and property management meet. We'll see you next time.